Hey everybody, Elizabeth here at the Kenai Community Library for our final installment of our community quilt. Make sure to get us your blocks by September 15th. You can make a 9-patch, a rail fence, a stacks block, and more stacks and stacks block, which is what we're making today. So I have it all laid out here, and it's going to end up being a 9.5 inch by 9.5 inch block. And I took all my scraps and I measured them out about 5 to 6 inches, 1 to 2 inches wide, because remember we're going to have our 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I laid out my block, and as you can see, I've got stripes on one side, stripes on another side, and then we're kind of having a 9-patch in the middle. And this one we're going to do a really cool triangle, and we're going to show you how to do that in this block. So let's get started with one of our sides. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to take my sides, put right side together, put it into my sewing machine at my 1/4 inch, and I'm just going to start sewing. Okay, so this block, like our other block, has a lot of pressing in it. We have to press it after each. So remember, put your fabric down and press it out. And then we go back to our setting. We're going to put, let me grab it here. We're going to put our next block piece. Our next scrap is going to go here. So I'm going to put it right side together, and back to the sewing machine we go. Okay, so this is my last strip, and I'm going to press it open. And here I have one side completely pressed and done. As you can see, everything is nicely laid out and flat. And don't worry that nothing matches up. We're going to trim it down just as soon as we do the other side the exact same way, but with different fabric. Okay, so now I've got my 2 sides done. And you might notice that I had to add in some extra fabric. What ended up happening was I had everything laid out, thought I was going to be about 12 inches, and I wasn't, so I had to add some extra fabric in. Now I'm going to do something that we haven't really done, and it's called squaring up. So I'm going to take my 2 pieces, and I'm going to make them 3.5 inches wide and 9.5 inches long. So how you do that is you lay it out on your cutting mat, and see how I have my bottom piece, because I really want to keep this. I'm going to square here. I'm probably going to square up my 1 and then go 1, 2, 3.5 and then square again, and then we'll go up about 9.5 and make another cut. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to lay it on my bottom line, and this is where it's kind of good to be able to walk around your table, because then you can get into the proper position. And I'm going to make that cut, and then I'm going to make the cut at 1. And then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3.5. So that's going to be at my 4.5. And I'm going to make another cut. And then I'm going to take all these pieces away here. And this piece away here. Oh, see, my thing didn't cut all the way. And now I need to go 9.5 inches. So that's going to be right there, and make one more cut. Good thing we added that extra piece on, because now I still have all my fabric, and there's my squared side. So let's go ahead and we'll do it with this other side as well. And I think I'm going to put it this way because I want to keep as much of my cheetah print as possible. And my cheetah print is actually pretty square and flat on my board. We'll bring it down just a little. Move all of our scraps out of the way. Then we'll do our bottom cut. And we'll do our side cut. And our 4.5. That, take all that, kind of get all your little threadies out, and then go to my 9.5. And there we go. We have our 2 pieces for the sides of our block. Now let's do the middle. And to do the middle, you're going to need 4 squares exactly like our 9 patch, 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. In order to do the triangle, I'm going to take my 2 ones that I want to do the triangle, put them right sides together, and I'm going to pin them so that way they stay just a wee bit better. Make sure it's as flat as you can make it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and a pencil and I'm going to draw a line straight through, right down the middle. See my line? Now I'm going to take my sewing machine and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch on either side of my line. What that looks like is exactly like this. See where my 1/4 inch is here at the side of my foot? See where my line is? I might make it just a tad bit smaller. Be sure to go a little bit slow to make sure you stay nice and straight. I'm going to cut this real quick. And then we're going to go right back down the other side. Now, as you can see, we've got 2 seams. And we take our ruler, put it back on our line, take our cutter, go like that, and then, ta-da! We have a square. Let's go to the ironing board and iron it out. Okay, so here's our triangle. I'm gonna press my seam, and then I'm gonna open it up, and I'm gonna press straight out. And look, we now have triangles and squares. How easy. Okay, now that we have our block all laid out, we're going to start putting it together. So we'll start with the middle pieces because that's where we have the most sewing to do. just like our 9 patch, I'm going to take my top piece, right sides together, and do my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you might notice that I've kind of messed this up. It's not a perfect square down here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fudge, and I'm going to put so that my fabric butts out on both sides to make sure that I'm just kind of continue to stay even with my nice 3.5 inch square, even though my other square isn't exactly 3.5 inches. So don't worry if it's not perfect. That's the fun thing about quilting, is you can fudge a little bit. So let's sew this 1/4 inch seam together. As you can see, I sewed it together, I pressed it open. I still made a little bit of a boo-boo and not kind of centering the square, but that's okay. I'm going to take my next square, and look how nice that one fits over. I mean, that's just perfect. So now we're going to sew this 1/4 inch, press it out, and then sew our 2 sides. Okay, so now my middle section is put together. Doesn't that look pretty cool with my really nice, semi-nice triangle? Now I'm going to take my one side and I'm going to flip it over, and then we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down here. Okay, now we have our one side pressed on, sewn, and then pressed open, and I pressed it open into my larger seam. Next, I'm going to take my other side, fold it over, right sides together, per usual, and another 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, for the final reveal, we're going to press it, and then we're going to open it, and look at that awesome pattern. So this is our Stacks and Stacks quilt block, used with all scraps found at the Kenai Community Library. And so now you guys go out, rummage through your scrap pile, make us a quilt block, bring it in by September 15th, and be part of our community quilt that will get hung up in the library this winter. Stay tuned for other fun classes that the Kenai Community Library is doing. We have story time every Wednesday. We have our Lego Club Challenge on Mondays. And we'll have other fun, great classes throughout the week. Talk to you later.